What can you do with a degree in wildlife biology? Chris Lunn is a practiced pest and animal damage controller and trapper. He is involved in a rewilding project to re-establish the beaver in Wyoming. He is vice president of the National Wildlife Control Operators Association, and he explains how the North American model of wildlife conservation and trapping is a vital part of conservation. Chris started out as a fur trapper. He was an electrician with construction skills and came to realise that he could build a business out of combining his construction and trapping skills. And before we go any further, I want to thank my subscribers. Without you, there would be no channel. Please let me know in the comments section below if there are questions you would like me to ask my future guests. Working in animal damage control and living the wild life looks like this. Chris, what do you do?
I'm a wildlife control operator. I own RM Wildlife and Pest Solutions. I'm the vice president of the National Wildlife Control Operators Association and the chair of the advocacy committee.
What jobs are there in wildlife management or wildlife control, Chris?
There's wildlife control operators is a job. Obviously, animal control, pest control also ties in, and there's different jobs within agencies, maybe wildlife services or certain trapping positions with research universities, etc.
Skills do you need to work in this industry, Chris?
So useful skills, in my opinion, would be obviously trapping is a useful skill. Many times it can be taught relatively easy. Animal handling is a good skill. The knowledge of biology of the species that you might be handling. Psychology, that one's one that people sometimes don't think about, but like what we do, we deal with the public mostly. And sometimes psychology is part of what we have to deal with, trying to keep people calm or educate them, or sometimes they even have actual mental issues that you have to work through where they believe things exist that don't or whatever. Um, Construction background is huge, and understanding of habitat is also pretty big. We're bigger and more important than the jack of all trades, but like we kind of are jack of all trades in a way. We're not handyman. We're more valuable than even a handyman.
What skills do you find that new entrants coming into this industry, Chris, lack?
So yeah, it kind of depends on where they're coming from, because sometimes they lack trapping. For example, in my business, a lot of times I hire people that have never trapped before because I think that's the least important of what we do. Removing animals is part of it, but the real solutions to the problem is where we focus. And so the construction and stuff is more important skill. For example, if you hire maybe somebody from a university that's coming with a wildlife biology degree or something, they can be useful to our business, and but they tend to lack the construction side. So, they might have the biology knowledge, maybe even a little bit of trapping knowledge, but they don't really know the construction side. Depends on where they come from.
If they're coming from, say, an academic background, Chris, college, state university, and they've done wildlife management, but they have very little or no construction experience, or for that matter, psychology, How can they gain these skills?
I mean, there's a lot of different ways to gain knowledge these days. Obviously, I'm the vice president of the National Wildlife Control Operators Association, and that association literally creates trainings, education, puts on a lot of education, seminars, webinars, big convention once a year. We offer a lot of education that's very valuable to this trade because it really is a trade. I'm definitely a little biased here, right?
Right.
As far as NACOA, I think that's one great place to get some of this. But there's other ways as far as, maybe somebody goes and works with a roofing company or construction company, a framing company, those kind of things they could do potentially as well. Even YouTube and stuff has a lot of good, valuable information out there. You just sometimes have to know how to weed through what's real and what's fake.
I'm no longer 25, as you've probably noticed.
So 27 or so.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, 27 in a week. Yeah. There's been an awful lot of a move in the last couple of years since COVID to do
Mhm.
online courses. I'm guessing
Mhm.
that something like construction, you've got to be there in person.
Maybe a little bit, but really the base knowledge can still be done online. Like even NACOA, we have a lot of online courses now available, and COVID really pushed the association to move towards that. There are going to be some hands-on ones that are important. There's classes right now out there teaching people how to bend and cut, custom fabricate metal repairs for homes to keep raccoons out, for example. But yes, you need some in-person, real life experience bending and cutting and stuff. So it is a blend of both. I think there's stuff that can be learned in construction online. It doesn't all have to be in person.
How can somebody choose a good course, Chris?
Well, I would start with NACOA first. They're all good courses. I think it would depend on, the angle where you're going. If you're trying to become a wildlife control operator, private entity, private sector, come to work for me, for example. Maybe a good place to start would be just reaching out to those companies because they're going to provide you with a lot of this training that you might not have. Like you coming off of academia as wildlife biology or something, that's okay. And we can work with that. It's a great start, but we can provide a lot of that construction stuff. But if you were thinking more along the lines of an animal control industry, maybe some of what I'm saying in construction doesn't really play the same. Like animal control is a little different. They're just called out, collect a dog, collect a this, collect a that. They're not really providing solutions. They're just removing an issue, a current issue. They're more of a band-aid is what I would consider a lot of that. It really depends on where you're going, what your intents are.
To get into this trade, Chris, do you need a college degree or can some vocational qualifications serve?
I don't think you need a college degree to do a lot of trade stuff, honestly. Many times, people that are most successful in trade work actually are not great at academia. They're very good mentally how to see a problem and how to fix a problem, or they're really good with their hands and creating things with their hands. I don't think college education is mandatory. I do have college background. I went for wildlife biology myself, so I think it was beneficial to have my education, but I think people could go without it. I think you got more than one avenue to make something happen here in this industry.
How would you describe wildlife control, pest management in the US today? And what effect, if any, does politics have?
Politics definitely play a role. This industry is it's really growing as an industry pretty rapidly, and technology and equipment is also growing with it and making us be more efficient in what we do and such. But as urban environments continue to grow and become more prevalent, we see more issues with human wildlife conflict. This also gets intensified and this is of course my opinion. Trapping is often scrutinized and attacked. Let's say, for example, the fur trapping community. People think they're doing justices and saving animal lives and going out and trying to remove trapping and or tools within trapping. They don't understand that this actually doesn't stop animals from having to die. Animals still will have to die, whether it's because now the population's higher and disease is going to wipe them out, or more automobile accidents, or people like us are now having to go remove more raccoons from houses than we were when there was a whole bunch of fur trappers out there utilizing an animal. There's instances that I can point out where, even hounds, some people are against running hounds on mountain lions or bears. And so they ban those things. And then you start to see progression of mountain lion and bear activity in an urban environment more so than it was happening before. Once again, they don't understand that I'm originally from Oregon and I watched them ban hounds there and baiting of bears. I know that many houndsmen still actually run lions and now they're paid to do this by the state, and the state is killing lions. So the people that voted these things in thought they were saving lions, but they're not. Politics is a huge part of this. Like it helps us with allowing tools or hurts us by removing tools to be successful in, you know, the the, the model of North American wildlife management. So that model does include what we do as a living, but it includes those fur trappers and such as well. So they're also a vital tool.
Um, you've just mentioned the North American model. It's something that fascinates me. I'm over here in the UK, and
Right.
not many people know anything about it whatsoever. Why would they? Unless they're a geek and a nerd like me. But can you just explain for maybe somebody who's a wildlife biology student, undergraduate in Wyoming or the wider US, what is the North American model, and how does trapping benefit wildlife conservation?
So I think, I want to obviously try to like oversimplify this. And so whoever's listening, I apologize if I don't hit every last detail of this, but in a nutshell, that it's allowing the use of all tools necessary to control a healthy population of whatever the species may be. Part of that sometimes is removal, um, to keep it as close to carrying capacities as possible, the healthy carrying capacities, and to minimize sine wave. Most people that know populations know it's a sine wave. Many times the correlation between two species, and for a lynx hare example, lynx populations follow the hare population. It gets way up here, the hares die off, then the lynx die off, right? So you're trying to like cap these highs, these peaks and valleys, and bring that sine wave in. And so using as many tools as possible for that. And trapping is definitely one of them. And also utilizing those animals, whether it's for clothing, whether it's for food, you know, maybe even obviously there's decorations, there's a lot of things to do with it, medicine. Um, and so I think I think we know that there's going to be an extra, so why not utilize the extra versus, in my case, once again, as a wildlife control operator, many times we're actually forced to waste. If we have to remove something, in some states, we're mandated to discard this animal, to throw it away. Uh, and so we're actually forced to wanton waste, while the fur trapper sometimes is forced to use what he kills. So kind of contradictory a little bit.
How would you describe the pest management trade in Wyoming today, Chris? I mean, is there a lot of anti feeling? Is there a lot of pushback? Or is it a thriving trade?
Wyoming is considered the cowboy state, or how the West used to be, kind of thing. So it's a pretty conservative overall belief in the state, but we certainly have areas that have more liberal beliefs as far as this topic goes. And um, but I find like a lot of times there's a lot of people that want like, oh, will you catch this animal and relocate it? First of all, no, no, it's not relocation. That's translocation. Once again, about education, people don't understand the difference, but um, they want you to relocate the animal. So then you have to educate. Well, that doesn't I mean, we're talking 30 below zero outside right now, 6 feet of snow, and taking it somewhere where it has no home or food. You think that's a good idea? That's a better option than quickly euthanizing an animal, right? So, we have a little bit of that we have to deal with as far as what I call the Disney mentality. But I think it's pretty easy going in Wyoming overall. Some states are worse than others as far as animal rights type extremism. Because I think most of us believe in being good to these animals and doing what's right. And even those who are killing many, many animals in a year, they want it done humanely. So we're all actually animal rights people in a way. It just some are extreme.
Yeah. Chris, how did your career develop, please?
I've been in some level of construction for a long time, and I was a fur trapper. And so, I got to the point at some point in time where people are like, they run into a friend of theirs has a beaver issue or something, and oh, Chris traps, and so I started kind of doing these little side trapping gigs. And then I realized this is where I'll, shamelessly plug Nakoa again. I really was doing this real basic on the side mostly, and then I was woken by this association and that there's a real trade here, and I can combine my two knowledges, construction, and trapping together, and create an actual business model that works with providing real solutions and stuff. And so, I got a lot of knowledge being part of them to put that together and create a business. And I left my electrical. The last thing I was doing, I was a journeyman electrician, and I left that and started this business. And
Chris, where do our knowledge gaps lie in wildlife management or pest control? Do you see drones coming into it in the future much more?
to the drone thing, absolutely, people are using them more and more and for inspection purposes, trying to keep people off of roofs until they actually have to get on the roof for sure, or being able to look over land with a drone versus trying to walk everything. I mean, there's a lot of ways to use drones, in the pest arena. They're spraying crops with drones. There's a lot of drone use. And I think that'll probably continue to grow more so. The knowledge gaps, though, feels kind of a different topic or question, really. I've kind of hinted on and touched on it a little bit, but like many of our customers don't really have a clue uh, when it comes to wildlife. Like they have a little bit of stuff, and they usually a lot of times they Google something, right? That hear a noise and get on Google, and they get a little bit of information, and then you have to either go in there and clean it up because they grabbed the wrong information, or you confirm what they've learned. But I think humans continue to congregate. Most populations, they seem to like to congregate in an urban environment. A concrete jungle is what I refer to it as. And they start to remove themselves. I mean, as a species, have removed themselves from nature more and more as time goes on. And so they don't really understand, even though they think they do, or maybe they're a person that loves to go camping and hiking, they still really don't know because they don't live with these things. So I think that's why we have to do a lot of education a lot of times because they just don't know. You clearly might know, even if you do live in a high-rise apartment or condo or something in, London or whatever, you might know because you've went to school, right? But most people have not gone to school for wildlife. So um, they know whatever they see. Sometimes it's propaganda that they see. Sometimes it's real, you know, legitimate information, and sometimes they've never seen nothing. So I don't know if I really answered your question. Maybe I tap danced around some stuff there.
That's great. It leads to another one actually, which is I don't know if you're aware of this, but here in the UK at the moment, I mean we're a little tiny island, probably fit into Wyoming 10 times.
Right.
But right now we've got this real movement towards what used to be called translocation. Maybe not actually, But now we've got this movement of rewilding, where
Mhm.
you've got rare species, native species to the UK that are being bred in captivity for soft release back into the
Right.
wild, like lynx, for example. Any of that happening in Wyoming, or is translocation actually frowned upon? How does it work?
No, it's definitely also happening here too. So one example, I believe maybe in UK, I know that like beaver is one of the ones that you're referring to about rewilding. That's pretty hot topic over there. That is also something that's pretty hot over here. I'm actually involved in beaver relocation projects. In the West, it's pretty popular. Now, further east in the country, it's less popular as far as moving the beaver around. But even then, it's, how do we live with them? Tree wraps, beaver deceivers and diverters and, pond levelers and all these different ideas of exclusion to be able to live with beaver is becoming more popular. But like in the West, for sure, the moving the beaver around to try to hold water back, create larger riparian zones for fire control. That's one reason. Obviously also to help with wetland species. Swans, trumpeter swans is a good example. I'm part of the program with the Wetland Society, Wyoming Wetland Society, and they kind of were created because of swans, trumpeter swans, and they're building trumpeter swan populations. So this beaver control program works well with their swan program. And so there's value in it, and it's good. I'm always the guy who's a little reluctant and questions things, because maybe I don't believe every last thing about something, about this program, but I think there's really good in the program, and so hopefully more people can have like a little bit of an open mind about these topics. Sometimes removal is needed. Sometimes euthanasia is needed. Sometimes we can move an animal and that's a good idea. Sometimes it's not a good idea. Yeah, it's just not cut and dry. As much as we want everything to be black and white, there's a lot of gray.
Chris, would you be able to suggest a research topic or a project idea for undergraduates of wildlife biology?
On that note, I would say translocation. I mean, and that could be for various species. I think that there's still a lot of lacking research when it comes to translocation of many species. And many studies show that the survival rates are very low for a lot of animals. Even the survivors of those said research projects weren't in good condition when they were recaptured. So, but I think that more of that needs to be done. I believe that translocation in my area most of the year is probably a horrible idea. And I think that the science would prove that to be true. Now, if I go down in southern Florida, it might not be the same result. I think there's a lot of room for research in regards to translocation. Another topic, though, I would throw out there is bats. Like, there's still lots of research available for bats and understanding. We evict a lot of bat colonies in our trade and understanding like what's the average, where do they go, how far do they go, so on and so forth. There's a lot of information that could be collected there.
Chris, do you have to deal with any, for want of a better expression, pseudoscience or misconceptions in your day to day work?
Oh, definitely misconceptions for sure. I mean, like you say, the big one would be the relocation topic. I mean, it's a very large percentage. If we have to trap something, the question is, what do you do with it? And then you say, well, do you want to know the answer? Are you sure you want to ask that question? Kind of thing, like, because I'm going to tell you the truth. And sometimes telling the truth is, yeah, they're being dispatched. I think I think that's the biggest, really the biggest one. It's not all roses. It's not all Disney. You don't take this animal and it's here you go. I mean, educating them, even like zoonotics, people don't know nothing about zoonotics and they don't understand that I could take a raccoon that is appearing to be healthy. It's actually carrying distemper. It's just not showing its signs yet. And I go drop it off somewhere where there's a healthy population of raccoons right now, and it literally spreads distemper in that population and wipes that population out. Nobody thinks about that. That's usually in the reaction a lot of times when I explain these things to clients is what you just did, where you said, wow, like you didn't think about it. Am I saying that raccoon's sick? No, but I don't know. if it's sick. And that's why I believe in programs, like the beaver thing I was talking about. They are looking for areas that are lacking beaver that could utilize beaver. And although there's still even improvements further yet that they could do, they're attempting to minimize the potential of dropping a beaver somewhere. Like they're actually very territorial, right? They're very aggressive to each other. And if you dump this beaver into a colony, it could literally, I mean, just get its butt whooped and all kinds of harm done to this animal. So, it's important to make sure you're not doing that to an animal. These are things people just don't think about. I mean, even with a squirrel, I mean, in my opinion, there's a jillion squirrels out there. I don't know that we need to relocate squirrels, but I mean, they're also territorial, right? And you're potentially causing harm to them by dumping them where you think is nice.
Amongst the members in your trade, are there anybody who uses falconry techniques to control feral pigeons?
Yeah, there's definitely some falconers without a doubt in our trade. Whether it's pigeons or other birds, starlings, et cetera, et cetera. Falcons definitely get used, hawks, et cetera. And also another one is dogs. We've got members even that they run terriers and stuff and send them in to push, say, raccoons out of a ceiling or something. You can put them in pretty small areas. So, there's dogs and hawks or falconry are definitely used in our trade, and a person could even make a business based around them.
Chris, is there anything you'd like to add?
I would just like to say, this trade can be very rewarding. It can be very difficult dealing with raccoon feces or whatever along the way, but it can be exciting, and you can really see, the relief on customers' faces can be really rewarding. I urge people to move towards our trade and become a member of NACOA.
Chris, can you give your full name, your positions, and the two organizations you're with, please?
Yes, I'm an owner of Prestige Furs, so we, doing garments, blankets, etc. Also an owner of RM Wildlife and Pest Solutions, and then the vice president currently of NACOA and the chair of their advocacy committee. So also a member of NPMA, the National Pest Management Association, who we work closely with.
Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really fascinating. Thank you so much for being on The Practical Animal. Chris.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.